Reports of motion within the ice wall have accumulated over decades, each contributing to a broader pattern supporting the existence of the living anomaly. The earliest records came from seismic stations positioned near polar research outposts. These instruments detected faint tremors localized within the upper ice strata, tremors too weak to signify tectonic activity, yet too structured to represent random cracks. As technology improved, patterns emerged that mirrored biological rhythms rather than geological ones. The shifting follows a consistent migration cycle. During winter's peak, when temperatures reach their lowest points and external disturbances diminish, the entity moves deeper into the ice. This descent corresponds with densification of the surrounding material, providing the stability and pressure conditions it seems to prefer. As summer approaches and surface melting influences the upper layers, the entity gradually ascends, following pathways formed through natural expansion and contraction of the ice. Its movements appear synchronized with thermal cycles, suggesting that it recognizes seasonal shifts through pressure variations and internal temperature gradients. The most distinct evidence of motion within the wall comes from satellite-based interferometric radar. These systems detect minute changes in elevation and density across ice surfaces, revealing subsurface disturbances invisible to the naked eye. Repeated scans show narrow bands of displaced ice aligning with the entity's known trajectory. These disruptions appear as subtle undulations, resembling the wake of something traveling silently deep beneath the frozen facade. Occasionally, the shifting triggers audible sounds, deep, resonant tones that echo across the ice fields. These acoustic emissions occur when the entity moves through particularly rigid sections, causing microscopic fractures that propagate outward. Field researchers have documented these tones, describing them as harmonic pulses that persist for seconds before dissipating into the polar silence. Their regularity and frequency patterns match seismic activity recorded during the entity's detected movement, forming a rare convergence of acoustic and geological evidence. The shifting phenomenon also interacts with subglacial hydrology. Beneath many ice walls lie networks of pressurized water channels carrying meltwater to the ocean. When the entity passes near these corridors, its presence alters water flow. Pressure increases momentarily as ice contracts in response to its movement, creating temporary blockages that reroute water until equilibrium returns. These fluctuations have been observed in hydrological sensors, appearing as sudden spikes that return to baseline shortly after. Intriguingly, the entity avoids regions where the ice wall becomes structurally unstable. Zones prone to collapse or rapid calving show no signs of its presence. This avoidance suggests an awareness, whether instinctual or environmental, of potential danger. The entity gravitates instead toward areas of predictable density where long-term compression guarantees an environment that remains consistent on geological timescales. Although the shifting occurs slowly relative to human perception, its cumulative effect across centuries is significant. The entity carves tunnels and pathways that fill gradually with recrystallized ice, leaving behind faint structural anomalies. These anomalies, when mapped, reveal a complex network of routes resembling migratory paths. Over generations, these trails form a frozen imprint of its existence, preserved in the ice like ancient footprints. Even with modern imaging, much of the shifting remains invisible, concealed behind layers too dense for sensors to penetrate. Yet each tremor, each harmonic pulse, each pressure variation contributes to a larger understanding. The ice wall is not a static monument, but a dynamic habitat. Something alive moves within it, shaping its inner architecture with the patience of geological time. The discovery that something alive moves within the ice wall reshapes understanding of life's limits. Rather than existing on the periphery of extreme environments, the entity thrives within one of the planet's most inhospitable regions. Its survival demonstrates that life can adapt not only to harsh conditions, but to environments defined by near-total isolation, minimal energy flow, and constant pressure. The organism's presence introduces new perspectives on the potential for life in extraterrestrial environments. Worlds like Europa and Enceladus possess massive ice layers covering subsurface oceans. If an organism can navigate Earth's ice walls, then similar life forms might inhabit the frozen shells of distant moons. The entity becomes a terrestrial example of a biological model that may exist throughout the solar system. Despite the profound implications, the creature's existence remains largely undisturbed. The ice wall protects it from human intervention, guarding it behind layers too dense to penetrate. Any attempt at extraction would risk collapsing surrounding structures or triggering irreversible environmental consequences. Thus, research focuses on non-invasive observation satellite scans, seismic monitoring, and chemical sampling of adjacent meltwater. Through these methods, scientists hope to understand the entity without disrupting its ancient habitat. The silent life within the ice appears to function independently of traditional ecosystems. Instead of relying on sunlight or organic material, it may draw energy from chemical gradients, geothermal heat pockets, or internal metabolic efficiency. The ice becomes both barrier and resource, shaping an evolutionary path isolated from the rest of the biosphere. Its existence hints at ecosystems hidden within icy worlds, sustained by mechanisms yet to be fully understood. One of the most remarkable aspects of the entity's behavior is its consistency. Across centuries of glacial formation, climate oscillations, and shifting ice dynamics, it continues its slow migration. Records inferred from deep ice cores indicate disturbances in historical layers aligning with modern movement patterns. These correlations suggest that the organism predates human observation, surviving multiple glacial cycles. Its resilience surpasses that of most known species. Questions about its origin remain unresolved. It may have evolved from ancestral extremophiles trapped during ancient glaciation, gradually adapting to the dense ice environment. Alternatively, it might represent a lineage that migrated upward from subglacial lakes, where unique microbial ecosystems flourish independently of the surface world. Another possibility is that it belongs to a branch of life completely distinct from recognized classifications, an organism that challenges the definitions of biological structure. The silent coexistence between the entity and the ice demonstrates a balance between movement and stability. It navigates without damaging its habitat, leaving delicate traces that quickly heal through recrystallization. This careful interaction suggests a deep evolutionary bond between organism and environment, one that ensures mutual preservation. As the ice wall undergoes changes driven by global warming, the organism's future becomes uncertain. If melting accelerates, its habitat may destabilize, forcing it into deeper, colder regions, or triggering adaptations that reshape its behavior. Some models predict that it may retreat into the most ancient ice layers, inaccessible to any form of observation. Others theorize that it could transition into subglacial lakes, joining ecosystems shielded from surface fluctuations. For now, its presence remains a silent mystery, alive, yet unseen, ancient yet constantly moving. It resides within the ice wall like a heartbeat within a frozen body, persistent and deliberate. Its existence expands the boundaries of what life can be, reminding humanity that the planet holds secrets still locked within its coldest regions. The ice, though seemingly unmoving, contains an unseen world shaped by rhythms slower than time itself, and deep within its crystalline corridors, something continues to move, alive in the most unlikely of places. Across the planet's polar regions, immense walls of ancient ice rise like monuments sculpted by geological time. These frozen cliffs, shaped over millennia by storms, shifting temperatures, and relentless winds, form boundaries between land and ocean that resist the advances of human exploration. Every stratum within them holds a record of atmospheric history, dust from volcanic eruptions, mineral particles carried by global circulation, remnants of ancient climates long vanished. Yet deeper within these structures exists a realm less understood than any frozen archive, a hidden layer where the ice becomes denser, colder, and darker, sealing away secrets untouched by sunlight for tens of thousands of years. In recent decades, advanced radar and subglacial imaging technologies have revealed anomalies embedded within these ice walls. The anomalies differ from trapped air pockets, fissures, or sediment layers. they shift. The movement is slow, rhythmic, and deliberate, contrasting with the random cracking patterns typically produced by temperature fluctuations. At first, these readings were dismissed as mechanical noise, atmospheric interference, or miscalibration of equipment. But repeated measurements across distant regions showed nearly identical patterns that suggested motion originating from within the ice itself rather than above or below it. This silent motion has captured the attention of cryologists, geophysicists, and deep ice researchers, not because it threatens the integrity of the ice walls, but because it challenges existing understanding of what can survive in such extremes. Temperatures plunge far below the threshold required to sustain most known forms of life. Pressure builds as layers accumulate, creating an environment thought to be devoid of biological activity. And yet something alive appears to inhabit these inhospitable depths, using movement as its only detectable signature. The ice wall, often perceived as static and immutable, becomes a dynamic environment when viewed through the lens of slow geological time. It advances, retreats, compresses, and fractures, forming corridors and cavities hidden from view. Within these features, pockets of liquid brine remain unfrozen due to pressure and salt concentration. These pockets create isolated microenvironments capable of sustaining microbial ecosystems. However, the moving anomaly detected within the ice wall is far too large, too coordinated, and too persistent to be attributed simply to brine-encased colonies. Its movement spans meters rather than micrometers, carving faint but measurable paths through the frozen mass. The exact location of the phenomenon varies, but it remains confined to the densest strata regions where the ice becomes metamorphic, transforming into a crystalline matrix that traps heat, amplifies friction, and limits external influence. In these zones, even sound travels differently, muted by the compression and refractive qualities of the ice. Instruments placed near the anomaly record low-frequency vibrations unlike typical glacier tremors. These vibrations follow a pattern consistent across seasons, weather conditions, and structural shifts. They do not match data produced by icequakes, subglacial rivers, or collapsing chambers. The discovery suggests that something within the ice wall is alive, not necessarily in the familiar biological sense, but as a stable, reactive entity responding to environmental stimuli. Motion indicates intention or survival behavior, traits usually associated with organisms adapted to extreme environments. Whether this presence originated in the ice long before the current glacial cycle, or migrated into it through other means, remains unknown. Yet its persistence across centuries of ice formation implies that it has existed far longer than human observation. From the surface, the ice wall appears tranquil, reflecting polar sunlight with crystalline brilliance. But deep within its depths, behind layers of opaque blue ice and compressed geological history, something moves with slow, deliberate purpose, alive, hidden, and waiting. Understanding the organism or entity moving inside the ice wall requires interpreting fragmented data collected through limited technological means. Direct sampling remains impossible due to the surrounding pressure and temperature extremes. Therefore, researchers rely on acoustic profiles, thermal imaging, and fragmentary chemical signatures extracted from meltwater produced near the anomaly. These data points depict an organism unlike any found in the biosphere above. The entity's body structure is deduced primarily through thermal traces. Although the surrounding ice maintains temperatures far below freezing, localized warmth appears near the moving anomaly. This warmth is faint yet consistent, suggesting active metabolic processes. The heat footprint is elongated, implying a shape optimized for movement through narrow ice channels. The contours are smooth, lacking sharp protrusions that would fracture the ice, enabling the entity to glide slowly through the compressed crystalline environment. Chemical analysis of meltwater reveals the presence of complex organic compounds, many of which resemble extremophile byproducts. However, these compounds exhibit variations not found in typical microbial systems, including novel protein structures capable of folding efficiently under immense pressure. These proteins function at temperatures that would halt enzymatic activity in most organisms, demonstrating an adaptation refined over long evolutionary periods. Acoustic readings provide further insight. When the entity moves, it emits vibrations distinct from natural ice shifts. The frequency patterns suggest a controlled motion expansion and contraction of internal structures that push against the ice. This form of locomotion resembles peristaltic movement, but on a scale and intensity compatible with deep ice conditions. It allows the entity to travel steadily without generating cracks or destabilizing the surrounding strata. One of the most intriguing aspects of the organism is its apparent ability to influence the phase state of ice. Thermal fluctuations measured near its path indicate that it can temporarily alter the ice matrix, softening it enough to navigate through it without melting it entirely. This adaptation may rely on biochemical agents excreted through its surface agents that disrupt hydrogen bonding within the ice for brief periods. As the organism passes, the ice slowly recrystallizes, leaving behind only faint textural irregularities that become detectable through advanced imaging. No clearly defined sensory organs are evident from available data. Instead, the entity seems to rely on environmental feedback transmitted through the ice itself. Pressure changes, sound vibrations, and temperature gradients provide cues that shape its movement. This method of sensing suggests an organism deeply integrated into its habitat, one that interprets the ice not as an obstacle but as an extension of its biological framework. What remains unclear is whether the entity requires sustenance as traditionally understood. No direct evidence of feeding has been found, although chemical discrepancies in nearby ice layers imply the absorption of dissolved nutrients or minerals. The consistency of its movement hints at an energy source that might derive from chemical gradients or geophysical processes occurring within the ice wall. Such a mechanism would allow the creature to survive without relying on external food chains. If the entity is ancient, it may represent a lineage that predates the current glacial periods. Its resilience suggests that it endured cycles of freezing and thawing, possibly retreating into deeper ice during warmer epochs and re-emerging as global temperatures shifted. Such continuity would place it among the most persistent forms of life on Earth. The organism remains a biological enigma, a being adapted not just to extreme cold, but to the very architecture of ice itself. Its existence challenges assumptions about where life can thrive, and reveals that entire ecosystems may remain hidden within frozen landscapes, waiting to be deciphered. We upload new videos every single day, so make sure to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss what's next. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to leave a like, it really helps the channel grow. Tell us in the comments what you'd like to see next, your ideas might be in our next upload. Thank you so much for watching and for being part of our community. Stay tuned, stay curious, and we'll see you in the next video.